So I guess I'm supposed to start my talk. So I'm Nick Campion. I'm Associate Professor of Cosmology and Culture at the University of Wales, Trinity St David. And my talk is titled Countering the Threat of Pollution of Space Through Awareness Raising via Narratives of Sustainability, a word that we've just heard contested, and rightly so. After all, we do get the arms industry claiming to be sustainable, so there's nothing naturally virtuous in the word. I've got quite a lot of slides. I'm going to go through quite quickly. I'm very happy to make a PDF of my slides available afterwards. So I begin just with my abstract. And so I'm engaging with the symposium themes of community engagement and awareness raising through proposing narratives which provide alternative stories to the belief in unrestricted technological development. So I'm going to begin with this quote from Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic philosopher and Roman emperor, just for a bit of inspiration. He wrote, "Survey the circling stars as though yourself were in mid-course with them. Often picture the changing and rechanging dance of the elements. Visions of this kind purge away the dross of our earthbound life." And this, of course, is reminiscent of the La Palma Declaration. And what I got out of the opening statements was there are two fundamental lines of approach to the problem of satellite constellations. One is the technological, the problems of space junk, etc. And the other is that those of us gathered here love the sky. I am actually, I declare it now, sort of in love with the sky. I look at it every day, and it fills my heart with joy. That's, as an academic, that's my motivation. At the University of Wales, Trinity St David, we have a hub in the UNESCO Bridges enterprise, and UNESCO Bridges is designed to bring the humanities to bear on environmental problems. So it recognizes that environmental science has important uses, but in terms of communication and listening to people and dialogue, then the humanities are important. So that's again the context I'm involved in. So in terms of public communication, there are problems. So currently only a very small number of people, mainly urban people, are concerned about the sky. I know very few who pay any attention to even a brilliant full moon. And awareness of sky pollution concerns even fewer people. By contrast, space exploration and development captures the public imagination. So to find mitigation to the problem of satellite constellations, we have the very important technological solutions which we must pursue, but also need to find narratives which are meaningful to the wider population. At the moment, SpaceX/Starlink has very powerful narratives. So, the first sustainable reusable rocket is SpaceX declares that it has, taking humanity to other planets, beginning a new phase in human evolution for the good of all. SpaceX has very powerful imagery, very reminiscent for me of the powerful imagery of Star Trek. And Starlink promotes itself as a leader in space sustainability. It writes, Starlink not only leads the industry in innovations to reduce satellite brightness, but also on-orbit debris mitigation, meeting or exceeding all regulatory and industry standards. So so where we in this symposium are urging the satellite constellation industry to go, Starlink already claims it's there. And here's from a few days ago, the news: Elon Musk's Starlink satellites seen streaking through sky. Some thought they were UFOs. No, very exciting stuff. But here again, from a few days ago, astronauts and cosmonauts returned to Earth after getting stuck in space for more than a year, hit by space junk. And just in terms of the wider context of the problems in space, is Neil deGrasse Tyson's excellent book, Accessory to War, which documents the alliance between astronomy slash astrophysics and the weaponization of space. So, astronomy is not a neutral player here. And of course, space is the Wild West. See a slide in a minute. Mining and resource extraction. The problems of pollution are little considered when we hear excited stories of the mining of astronauts. And opinions on the Outer Space Treaty vary, as we've seen. And so, what is the role of space law versus national governments, private corporations, and so on? I think the UN is a very, very worthy organization. I'm extremely devout believer in it. But from the Korean War to the current Russian-Ukrainian war, we see how it is powerless unless it is given power by national governments. This repeats the previous slide, as does that. So UNUSA, very, very worthy goals again, promoting particularly the sustainable development goals, space for climate action. And so these initiatives need to be supported. But I think, as we've seen today, these initiatives do not possess the power that national governments and private corporations do. So as we've seen, this just repeats statements already made today, for which I'm very grateful. But the paper by Venkatesan, Lowenthal, Prem et al. Documents these issues in terms of satellite constellations and the general situation in space. No international coordination, minorities and indigenous communities excluded, destruction of our relationship with the night sky, and actually recreating the destructive imperialistic history of the colonization of the Wild West and other colonized cultures. So how do we answer this? By developing narratives. So SpaceX has its powerful narratives. So Michael Dahlstrom makes the point very strongly that to put across technological arguments may be important, but he says engagement into the world of narrative uses enough emotional and cognitive resources. It is difficult for audiences to generate counter-arguments. So how do we generate counter-arguments against SpaceX Starlink's very clever use of narratives? So SpaceX Starlink promotion emphasizes sustainability, environmental awareness, and the good of humanity. We don't need to argue there are not benefits in these aspirations. However, we've been here before. We've been here before with polluting substances that were touted as public goods, and one might think of fossil fuels, plastics, many pesticides, which may have benefits, but also, as we now know, profound downsides. So SpaceX, as it says, is working to lower satellite brightness. Very good, but it still leaves the space junk problem. So sustainability narratives, we might think of these in different forms. The circular economy, which I'll come back to. There's the bioeconomy. These are all terrestrially based. The green economy, the sharing economy, a sufficiency, opposing superfluous consumption. And so in terms of the terrestrial environment, there are already perspectives, narratives which can be used. Max Weber, the sociologist, proposed 4 kinds of rationality, of which the first 2 were practical or technical rationality and theoretical or value rationality. And here they are, illustrated in John F. Kennedy's speech of the early 1960s. My date there is obscured, where he is appealing to Congress for funds to support the moon landing proposal. On the left-hand side there, saying we propose to accelerate development of the appropriate lunar spacecraft, and we need alternate liquid and solid fuel boosters and additional funds for other engine development. And then on the right-hand side, there he goes. This is what raised the funds. He talks about a battle between freedom and tyranny, an adventure on the minds of men everywhere. to make a determination of which roads they should take. Time for a great new American enterprise, etc., etc., etc. So he's appealing to values. He's appealing to American exceptionalism. So Weber's theory of value rationality provided a way to analyze these narratives. So public awareness of the risks of the proposed satellite launches can be reinforced by narratives drawn from the sustainability arena. So, SpaceX, Starlink already using Weber's value rationality. Not an unusual situation, because these days many banks, corporations, etc., deliberately promote their green credentials. And this is now known as greenwashing. Here's Greenpeace on the environmental campaigning organization on greenwashing. So it's not to say that SpaceX is greenwashing, nor genuine its environmental concerns, nor that Starlink does not have genuine benefits. However, the concerns expressed by the GAO report, thank you very much for the early presentation, do need answering. So Greenpeace says, challenge companies for greenwashing, complain to advertising watchdog, support organization campaigns, become an active citizen, voting, writing letters to MP, protesting, joining community groups, and so on. Well, that's what Greenpeace does. Aristotle came up with various different kinds of narratives. So let's look back to an earlier phase in the Western tradition. Logos, engaging with reality based on local circumstances. So logos for Aristotle, not universal logic, but reason based on actual conditions and circumstances. And then three important ones from my current perspective. Pathos, communicated with metaphor, story, anecdote. Ethos, doing things for the right reasons other than profit. Well, actually, SpaceX, Starlink claims it's doing that. And mythos, the arrangement of incidents in a narrative, i.e. how to tell a story. So we have many sustainability narratives. What do campaigning organizations do? Find sympathetic theoretical frameworks. They argue nature is special, space is special, safeguarding our heritage. The universe, not just our planet, is a single integrated whole. We have parallels, campaigns, the oceans, the air, the forests. Current campaign deal with plastic pollution in the oceans. Saving the whale was a very powerful earlier campaign. Dealing with air pollution, dealing with deforestation. All these are campaigns running at the moment, which have already developed narratives, activities which we are seeking to do. So mythos, the fund of stories concerning the sky, constellations from across the world. There are many. There are native Western mythological traditions. One can highlight a few astronomically based, very powerful stories. The Star of Bethlehem in Christianity, the crescent moon, which begins months in the Islamic calendar, the Taurian new moon, which begins the Buddhist New Year. So narratives of interconnection in the Western world. There are many cognates of indigenous thought and practice in the Western world, usually rejected by modern science. So, for example, spiritualism, theosophical cosmologies. The idea that modern Western science represents somehow the Western worldview is actually a complete fiction, as is obvious when one talks to, if you're a Westerner like I am, I live partly in the UK, partly in Spain, and you talk to anybody you mix with. So we have heritage studies reinforcing our right to see a dark sky as much as we have the right to see a mountain, a river, or the ocean. Environmental ethics, providing frameworks for arguing that nobody has the right to destroy a collective environment. Ecocide, applied to the notion that pristine space is being destroyed. And so Greenpeace here, our Pacific, not yours to destroy, equals our space, not yours to destroy. The United Nations has a very, very powerful document called Harmony with Nature, which argues that we should live in harmony with nature to achieve a just balance, etc., etc. Well, nature does not end, as we've heard earlier, as we leave the Earth. There is no wall which separates our Earth from the rest of the universe. The Harmony with Nature website is illustrated with, I've got a screenshot down below here of a wonderful image of orbiting planets, making the point nature extends into space. So what actually is harmony? This is from one of my colleagues at University of Wales. He says, we are connected to our environments, both built and natural, and all the parts of our communities and their environments are connected too. So interconnection. So narratives of interconnection from the Western classical tradition. This is the Neoplatonic philosopher, late Roman world, Plotinus, said all is a single living being, which encompasses all the living beings that are within it. In other words, there is no boundary between the Earth and near Earth space, outer space, space beyond that. Deep ecology, a modern version of that theory, moving away from instrumental environmentalism. Okay, human beings, it moves away from anthropocentrism. What's important is the world, the universe, nature. So deep ecology tells us that near space is actually not so far away, rather it is part of our extended Earth environment. And as we know, chaos theory, complexity, again, narratives of interconnection. We start messing around with asteroids, mining asteroids. Hey, huge problem. As we've seen, as people have alluded to earlier, interfere with the night sky. Bugs might suffer their ability to navigate. So then we have narratives of interconnection, business and economy. So the circular economy I referred to earlier minimizes waste. Everything in the circular economy has to be recycled. So if we're talking about recycling satellites, as we've seen earlier, that's a long way away, but it's an aspiration. Total cost accounting more immediate, taking account of supply chains, ethical investing part of this. So total cost accounting says, what is the total cost of an enterprise? Right? What is the total cost of putting up Starlink satellites? Okay, if we look at all the costs, including costs which may be detrimental, then where do we get with that? And can that model, which says that putting up Starlink satellites is a natural good, be contested? Natural capital. Natural capital consists of all the world's stocks of natural assets, geology, soil, air, water, all living things there. And as we've heard earlier, what is the boundary between what is living and what is not? Again, it's a very anthropocentric position. So action, calculate natural capital. What is the value of the night sky? Is polluting the night sky actually a beneficial thing to do? So the La Palma Declaration refers to education. So I work with colleagues who are taking school children out to look at the night sky, to become aware of natural cycles. The natural cycles, of course, are fundamental to the solar cycle. Watching the sky, showing children the moon and stars, the visual sky. So, you know, the IAUS already has an office for astronomical education. Narratives of interconnection, well-being. Okay, this is a book that I was the publisher of, Sark in the Dark, by one of my students, Ada Blair, looking at the role of dark skies, their important role in well-being. Religious narratives, again, we heard about religion earlier. But the claim that God, generally the male God, created the world, i.e. the universe for the use of humanity, which is a familiar one, is countered by the claim that humanity must protect the world, i.e. the universe. Humanity is a steward. Form alliances with religious groups. Very powerful, for example, Hinduism and the environment, green Christianity. I make this point because if some of us remember the Live Aid concert and the campaign to induce debt forgiveness after that. The Irish, the singer with the band U2, Bono, the band are Christians, was able to go and talk to Christian groups in the USA and thereby gain their support for his debt relief aspirations. He went right. He spoke to people in Congress who would otherwise have been completely unapproachable by using these connections. Human rights, and again, form alliances with other rights pressure groups. I think as we saw earlier, too many people are unaware of the night sky, and therefore that the sky is part of their right. And by the way, it's not just the night sky, the day sky is important. So a summary, the notion that governments and private companies can do what they like in space that will not have a direct and potentially deleterious effect on life on Earth is a delusion. The persuading overarching narrative should be that there are dangers to all of us which can and must be mitigated. E.g., in many countries, the public is already in favor of recycling. The public can pick up on these issues. So to moderate any damage while not denying the benefits of space exploration requires community engagement, which is obviously the point of this panel. To work with environmental bodies, and we've heard earlier, the more diverse a campaign that may induce difficulties but also benefits, and persuasive narratives. So I've suggested some types of complementary sustainable narrative here. To go back to Max Weber, engage with public values. So here's a quote from Leo Tolstoy from his book War and Peace, a quote put into the mouths of the leading character, Pierre. Don't I feel in my soul that I'm a part of the vast harmonious whole? We must live, we must love, we must believe that we have life not only today on the scrap of earth, but we have lived and shall live forever there in the whole. Pierre was saying, and he pointed to the sky. What a powerful statement that is. And lastly, Vincent van Gogh, to look at the stars always makes me dream, as simply as I dream over the black dots of a map representing towns and villages. And lastly, there's a picture of the boundary between the night and day sky, dusk taken from Mallorca and the Canary Islands last Wednesday. So thank you very much, and that's the conclusion of my presentation.
Thank you, Nick.